Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Italian Football Podcast. I'm Carlo Garganese, joined as always by Nima and Today is going to be a very, very busy show. It's been yet another mad week on the Mercato. Rasmus Hojlund is joining Manchester United for 85 million euros. Atalanta have done it again. Incredible financial deal for them. Pound for pound, are they the best run club in the world? They have signed Bilal Traore from Almeria to replace Hojlund. How good is he? Staying with Man United, Sofyan Amrabat is set to join from Fiorentina. There's a lot of movement with central midfielders. Inter and Milan have both virtually wrapped up deals for centre mids. Lazar Samardzic, who was on our show only a month or so ago, the left foot wizard from Udinese, is set to join Inter. Yunus Musah continues the American Revolution at Milan from Valencia. Roma are also close to signing Renato Sanches on loan from PSG. They are also in a battle with Inter for Gianluca Scamacca. Juventus also about to sign a player, Facundo Gonzalez, the under-20 World Cup hero from Uruguay who plays for Valencia. There's lots of other topics we want to get through. We may not have time. It's been absolutely mad in the Mercato. We will do our best. We also have, so please stay until the end, one of the all-time great Prem-face crimes from Rory the Tory. So you have to stay until the end for that because it is absolutely hilarious. Actually, I've got two amazing ones as well. And the other one I'm going to spring on you, Nima, because it's so good. So for all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode, which we do every Monday, reviewing the weekend Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all our content that we do throughout the week, including a weekly Q&A episode every Tuesday where we answer all the questions sent in from our patrons, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show and interviews, post-match reaction and much, much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $2.99 a month plus VAT. For all of you listening on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, we'd really appreciate a 5-star rating. Give us a follow, subscribe to us. We're on YouTube as well, and it really helps us to grow. So let's get into today's show. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Making your own podcast is fun, but the production of podcasts can also be challenging if you don't have the right software. With Zencastr, the whole process is quick and straightforward. Here at the Italian Football Podcast, we aim to have the highest of standards, and Zencastr provides crystal clear sound and fantastic HD video quality. Furthermore, it's really easy to use. Even boomers like Carlo can manage. There's nothing to download, just one click, and we start recording each episode. Zencastr ensures that your podcasting experience is easy and enjoyable. You don't even have to leave your browser, as it possesses all the tools required to get the episode done, from local recording to automatic post-productions. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code ItalianFootball, one word. You'll get 30% off your first 3 months of Zencastr Professional. We want you to have the same easy experiences that we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
Okay, Nima, let's start off then with Rasmus Hojlund, who is set to join Manchester United for 85 million euros, 75 million fixed fee, then 10 million in add-ons. The deal is done. It's going to become official in the next day or two. 5-year contract plus 1 year for Hojlund at United. And the first thing that comes to mind here, Nima, is Atalanta. They really are the best team in the world when it comes to selling players and making profits on players, aren't they?
It's not even close. I tweeted that out and people were talking, oh, what about Porto? What about Benfica? What about Borussia Dortmund? Borussia Dortmund sold Jude Bellingham and Erling Haaland. Atalanta have sold Frank Kessie, Gagliardini and Rasmus Hojlund. Like, what are we even talking about? It's not even a discussion. I mean, the list that we've got here, we have to go through it because I think that just ends that debate. Rasmus Hojlund, they paid 17 million euros for him, sold him for 85, and a deal worth 85. Romero paid 16, sold for 55. Amad Diallo, 0, sold for 41. Kulusevski, 100,000 euros, sold for 35. Bastoni, 0, sold for 31 million. Brian Cristante paid 9.5, sold for 30. Kessie, 0, sold for 28. Caldara paid 0, sold for 25. Gosens paid 1, sold for 25. Castagne paid 6.5, sold for 24. Andrea Conti, 0, sold for 24. Gagliardini, 0, sold for 22. Musa Barrow paid 0, sold for 13. I mean, it's not even a contest. Enzo Fernandez is a world-class player. Jude Bellingham is a world-class player. Erling Haaland is a world-class player. Okay, they screwed Liverpool, Benfica for Darwin Núñez, but
I mean, these clubs don't do amazing business. They're amazing selling clubs as well. Porto, Benfica,
yes,
Dortmund.
they are, but they sell quality.
Is you've got to look at the size.
But I'm saying if you compare the quality,
yeah, but you've also got to look at the size of the clubs. I mean, pound for pound, there's no debate. Pound for pound, Atalanta are a provincial club. These other clubs are big clubs. I mean, Porto and Benfica, they're historic clubs. They've won Champions Leagues between them in the past.
But what I'm saying is, even if you look at the quality, there's really only 1 or 2, maybe 3 actual world-class players on that list I read up.
Yeah.
But the others, like you said, they're bigger clubs, so they obviously attract bigger talent. But I mean, it's not. No matter how
that's what's amazing about it, Nima. Because if you take Rasmus Hojlund, and we've been singing his praises. He was my pick breakout start of the season. Like, we know he's an amazing talent, and he looks like he's going to have a great career. But the point of the matter is this: he started 20 games for Atalanta last season. He scored 10 goals in all competitions. Okay, most of that was in 2023. That's when he exploded this calendar year for club and for country. He's scored a lot of goals for Denmark as well. There's no doubt in the talent. But when you look at that, he started 20 games for Atalanta, scored 10 goals, and they've managed to quintuple their investment on him in 11 months. I mean, it's just insane. And that just follows the pattern of those players that you've read out, like Amad Diallo, that they sold to United for 41 million.
Yeah, who I spoke about last week.
He played just 4 senior games before they sold him for a fortune, and then they were all substitute appearances. Kulusevski, he'd only played 3 games for Atalanta.
Yeah, for Atalanta, but let's be honest, he had a fantastic season at Parma before he went to Juve in January, or 6 months there. So it's still, but it's a different thing. My point is simply, no matter what metric you use, no matter what parameter it is, that list that I read up since January 2017, that makes Atalanta by far, pound for pound, overall, they are the best club in terms of selling players and turning a profit. 390
not just selling,
million euros
but discovering players, scouting players, then developing them, because you've got to develop them as well. But also the youth system. A lot of these players came through the youth system. They've been with them since they were a very young age. They weren't just signed at 18. They didn't do what a lot of the Portuguese clubs do, in which they sign players from South America. Also, the other thing to mention about Porto and Benfica is a lot of those players have third-party ownership, and when you put it on paper, they bought this player for X amount and they sold him for 100 million. Well, actually, they've got third-party ownership who own about sometimes up to 50% of their contract, and actually not much of it is going to Porto and Benfica. So that you need to take into account as well. But yeah, I mean, Atalanta, the way that the club operates for such a small club,
but I mean,
amazing.
I just to build on that as well, like for me, again, the quality of the players, Cuti Romero, Bastoni, those are the only ones that I would say are world-class or world-class adjacent. I mean, the rest of them, I'm sorry, none of them are. They're good players, many of them. Some of them atrocious players. And some of them, the jury's still out on that.
Could become a world-class
But that's what I was going to
say.
That's what I was going to say. Hojlund is a player who I think, and I do sing his praises just like you did, because we both think he's a great talent. But again, we're talking about a player who had 6 good months, if even that, in the Serie A, and they flogged him for a deal worth almost 90 million euros. That is insane.
It is insane.
Absolutely
insane. And that list that you read out, like you said, there hasn't been that many success stories on those. I mean, some of these players have been huge flops. Caldara, massive flop. Andrea Conti, massive flop. Gagliardini. Kulusevski, massive flop at Juventus. Then they sold him on to Tottenham. Amad Diallo, so far, massive flop at United. He's been loaned out to the Scottish League and to the Championship so far. He did well last season in the Championship. But, let's see if he can do it at this level. So there hasn't been... Kessie struggled at first, then he came good. Cristante has been good, but, I mean, he's not been 30 million worth. Gosens has been, well, he struggled in the first
Flop.
year. I mean, did better in the last months, hasn't he? But
Still been a flop. Still been a
yeah,
flop. Let's be honest. Let's not beat around the bush here. Bastoni and Cuti Romero are the only ones to date today. With the
and I don't think Cuti Romero
has
has been a sensational either. I mean, he's been good. He's been good, but he hasn't been. I mean, he's been better for Argentina.
But
than
what
he
I'm
has for
saying
Tottenham.
is, absolutely. But that, I mean, Tottenham's problems are well documented and more related to Tottenham more than anything else. But the history of the Tottenham, as a certain poet from Italy said. Look, but today. 31st of July 2023, when we're going through this, Gianluca Mancini, another guy named on the list that's not on the list, that's the level of the players that they've done, that they sold at. Except for Bastoni and Cuti Romero, there's not really been a single player who I think I look at, wow, I'm sorry. And I'm not saying that Rasmus Hojlund couldn't be that guy. Of course he can. But
that's part of the skill, though, isn't it? That's part of the skill and of just how good they are. But also the other thing is, and we've said this before, when you have a system coach like Gasperini, sometimes players can look better than they are in the system, and then once they come out of the system, they struggle to adapt elsewhere. And that, I think, that's definitely been the case with a lot of these players. I don't think it's going to be the case with Hojlund over the long term. Maybe at the start, because he's done really well for Denmark as well. I mean, look how well he's been playing for Denmark this season. It's not just like he's a big talent. There's no doubt about it. But that is just a word of caution. That is a word of caution that when it comes to buying players from Atalanta, they seem to struggle when they're outside of the Gasperini system. That's something. That's a reason why these players have been sold for such big money.
Yeah, I mean, a profit in 6 years, well, 6.5, because this is from January 1st, 2017. 6.5 years of profit of almost 400 million euros. That is mental. That is just, wow. I mean, it's just, and again, look at the quality of the players, look at the size of the club. It's a tiny provincial club in northern Italy. I mean, it's just, you got to.
And they have the salary bill of a championship club, so.
Well, exactly.
I mean, that just shows you how to qualify for 3 Champions Leagues in a row, and really fight for the Champions League last season as well. I mean, it just shows how incredibly well run the club has been, and why we say, pound for pound, they are the best run club, because what they're doing, that they should be a bottom half Serie A team.
Yeah.
Not a team that's fighting for the Champions League every season. So
I think financially, in terms of player trading and in terms of how you run a club when you don't have the revenue streams of the EPL or a state backing you up, they are the best run club from that aspect in the world. There is no one else who comes close.
Yeah.
Not when you take every parameter into consideration.
Absolutely. And they've already got their replacement. And this is the other thing about them. They always work in advance. They already had their replacement for Hojlund. And that is Bilal Traore from Almeria for 28 million, which is actually a record transfer fee for Atalanta. And he's really highly rated. He really came to the fore last season when he scored the winner against Barcelona. I think it was in February this year. And he had a few injury problems, but he got 7 goals and 2 assists in 21 La Liga games. But he is lightning quick. I've seen a little bit of him. I haven't seen enough of him to come out and say, right, he's going to be, as good as Hojlund. But he's so quick. He was clocked running at 35 kilometers an hour. So that's he's crazy. Absolutely
that's Olympic. Like, that is very, very fast.
Yes, I mean, he's a centre forward, but he can also play on the right hand side. And only Nicholas Jackson, who has joined Chelsea now, 29.3%, and Christian Stuani, old Serie A player there, 25.7%, had a higher shot conversion rate than Bilal Traore, 24.1% last season in La Liga, among those that scored 7 goals or more last season in La Liga. So, Atalanta have done it before, and you can bet on them that they'll do it again.
Well, they will. But to build on what we were speaking about on the Q&A pod that I raised, we had a question about Udinese, and we had a question about what it means now that the big clubs in Italy are looking for these younger players, which traditionally is what the Atalantas and Udinese did. That's going to be interesting because of the fact that, Atalanta are so well run and they turn a profit consistently and they have money to spend. If they can start spending at this level and start buying these talented players for 28 million euros at low wages, of course, that makes it really interesting as to if they can sustain this sporting success, even past Gasperini, if they get the coaching position right, which is a big position. But in terms of competing for the best youngsters and the best players that haven't exploded yet, if they can pay a 28 million euro transfer fee for players of that quality, that's incredible.
Well, it is. They're starting to spend more.
That redraws. I mean, if they can do that and translate that into success on the pitch and continue this, that redraws the map of the Serie A in terms of strength of club, in terms of results and strength.
No, absolutely, and this is also the fruit of signing players, scouting players that they see are going to become good investments. Now, Rasmus Hojlund, they spent 17 million on him 11 months ago. That is, for a team like Atalanta, that is quite hefty. That's quite a hefty investment, but they did it because they were confident that they could improve him, and look what happens. Less than a year later, they've 5 times the profit. They've got exactly 5 times the profit. 17 into 85, 5 times. I mean, it's insane. So when they sign someone like Bilal Traore for 28, well, they're obviously looking at him and they're thinking, you know what? In a year or 2 years, we can probably sell him as well for 80 million, maybe. That's the way that that's the way they're looking at it. I'm not saying it's going to happen. That's the way they're looking at it. So I think it's incredible what they're doing, and they've got more money to spend now as well, so they can improve the rest of the team. So they're one to watch as well next season. We talk about Serie A, how competitive, how open it is. Well, watch out for Atalanta. They've got money to spend now, and they could bring in 2 or 3 Bilal Traores, who knows? And then you never know what could they do next season. So very, very, very interesting. Staying on Manchester United though, Sofyan Amrabat is getting closer to Fiorentina, depending on who you listen to. If you want to listen to real journalists or fake journalists, as one hilarious...
Who get community guideline notes on Twitter, which is the most hilarious thing I've ever seen happen on Twitter, because it's virtually impossible to get a community note on Twitter because of on a transfer story, because of the fact that most 99.9% of those stories are he said, she said. They're not... there's a lot of hearsay. There's a lot of stuff, things that are difficult. No, it's impossible almost at many times to get verifiable, objectively, because you don't have in politics where an authority comes out and says this is wrong or whatever. But that's how community notes work. But in order to get that on Twitter over a transfer story, that is a Herculean task. It's so incompetent that it's almost impressive. I'm really, really impressed by that. Well,
getting back to the issue at hand. So Sofyan Amrabat is getting closer to Manchester United. And the final fee, and we're talking about Atalanta and what an incredible job they do in getting, well, not going to say the maximum value, I'm saying the price is they get more than they should get for their players at Atalanta. Whereas we've been critical of other clubs, the same team, Manchester United, buying Onana for 55 million, for example. We're now with the same situation with Amrabat because he's going to go to Man United from Fiorentina for 30 million, including bonuses. That's too low, isn't it, Nima?
I don't know. I wonder if anyone... I mean, we had Niccolò Misul, who's the chief news editor of Fiorentina.it, on last week to do a Fiorentina deep dive. And he said, look, basically, if they sold him in January, they probably would have gotten a little bit more for him. Because his hype was so big after the World Cup. And of course, Morocco had a fantastic World Cup, a historic World Cup. So, it is what it is. But I think that around 30, 35, that's his value. That's a normal, non-inflated value for him. I think he's a fantastic player. And I've always looked at him as a kind of a poor man's Brozovic, because he doesn't cover as much distance as Brozovic did. But there are very similarities between them. In terms of the number of balls that they play, the first all-important first ball high up the pitch, the patience with the ball. Although I think Amrabat is much more direct, But there's a lot of similarities between them, and I actually think that this is going to be a good signing for Man United.
Definitely.
And if I'm not mistaken, they know each other.
Yeah, they work together.
Well, Ten Hag and Amrabat.
Yeah, they work together. For me, it's a massive undersell. I mean, I've always been a massive fan of Amrabat. What I like about him is what I want from my centre midfielder is I want them to dominate the centre midfield. It sounds very simplistic, but I want my midfielders to win the midfield, to be in control, to win their personal battle against their direct opponent or opponents, to control the possession, to be the master in the centre of the pitch. I feel like I get that with Amrabat all the time. I very rarely watch a game that Amrabat plays and I see him get dominated by his opposite number. He's physically very strong. He's mentally very strong. He gets stuck in. He wins a lot of tackles. He's got that grinta and that right grit, which goes into tactical fouls. Sometimes he knows when to make fouls, but he can control the game. Okay, he doesn't score many. He won't assist many, but he wins the midfield. He wins that midfield, and that's what I always want from my central midfielder. And I think there's few better around. We saw that in the World Cup. We saw it in the World Cup. He was dominating the centre midfield for Morocco in pretty much every single game. We saw it in the Europa League, the Europa Conference League final against West Ham. He dominated Declan Rice in that game. We see it time and again with Amrabat. I think 30 million is a snip for a player at his age.
No, look, it depends.
I know his contract is expiring next year, but so was Declan Rice. So are other players who are going to go for big money and go for big money. So I feel like, if this was Atalanta selling Amrabat, there's no way it would have been 30 million. It would have been 50. It would have been 50.
It would have been 45, 50. Yeah, 45, 50, yeah. And they probably wouldn't have, he would have left. That's another thing about Atalanta. They know exactly when to sell players. Yeah. They sell. Yeah, that's also really important. But no, look, it's I agree with that. I agree with most of that. I think he's all of that. But for me, I look at why Ten Hag wants him, and I look at that and I say, okay, well, it reminds me of Brozovic a lot, but just with less miles in terms of how much he can cover, because Brozovic smokes cigarettes and has lungs of steel, which is insane. I mean, he's just a freak of nature, that guy, because he just he has the world record for the most distance he covers, for distance covered in a football game. I think he's got the 2 highest ever distances ever covered in a football game. Both are Brozovic, and it's just insane. I mean, the man just never stops running. With Amrabat, he's not as dynamic as he is, but I do see a lot of similarities between them, and I do, and that's why I thought when Conte was linked with him, and I was surprised he didn't get him when he was at Spurs, because I think he would have, that would have suited him and his football. But no, look, I think it's bad for Fiorentina, of course, that he's leaving. But it's great, it's great for Moroccan football to finally get a big player again in one of the big clubs in the world. And I actually look at what United have done this summer, and I'm thinking, I'm starting to see lines here. I'm starting to see something very interesting.
I'm starting to get a bit concerned as well. Having grown up as Arsenal with my English team growing up, so Man United were not a popular team. And then there was the whole 99 semi-final as well, and all that. So I never liked Red United as a youngster, but they've done some good business. This
they done, and I'm seeing they're buying young, they're buying intelligently. I think they're buying players that will help them play exactly like it continues the mold of what he had at Ajax, but of course an upgraded version of that. I'm not saying they're going to win the Premier League or anything stupid like that, but I do think that they could, top 4 for sure. And it'll be interesting to see what they do in the FA Cups and how far they can go in the Premier League and Champions League. It's looking really interesting.
Yeah, and it's going to take some replacing as well at Fiorentina. We'll see if Arthur Melo can do it. They're looking at Nico Dominguez from Bologna and a few other names. Listen to our last Thursday's Patreon-only Fiorentina deep dive. We're doing this all summer. We're going through all the big clubs in Serie A. And we're looking at their transfer business, players coming in, players going out, what they're working on. That was, Dominguez was one of the names that's on the Fiorentina shortlist. I think he's the main man. Yeah.
The Nicola Misul said on Thursday from Fiorentina.it. And he also mentioned that how Rocco Commisso gave him a yellow card. He's been on the receiving end of that. So you definitely should check that out. So it was a great hours conversation on everything Fiorentina. So if you want to get updated on everything Viola, make sure to check that out, including the new stadium and many other things.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's move on to Inter now then. And another central midfielder, Lazar Samardzic, who is now, it seems, you can tell us, on the brink of joining Inter for around 25 million euros, plus the youngster Giovanni Fabbian.
That remains to be seen, because I think it's including Giovanni Fabbian.
Including Giovanni Fabbian, right.
Yeah. But that's from what I've understood from people I've spoken to. But we'll have to wait and see. The deal isn't done yet. There was talks of that Fabbian didn't want to go, but then his agent, before we started recording, came out and said that that's absolute fake news. He's got no problems going to Udinese. I mean, this was a player who did really well in the Serie B last year, who Inter extended with and believe in and don't want to relinquish control over. So in the sense that if he's included in this deal, Inter want to have a buyback clause for a fixed fee because they rate him so highly. So it's an interesting signing. I mean, this season we had him on just a couple of weeks ago, and it's continues this kind of revolution that Inter are doing this summer of rejuvenating in key parts of the midfield for sure. I mean, now if Samardzic signing is completed with Fratesi in, well, Mkhitaryan leaving next season takes a lot of stress away if Mkhitaryan leaves next summer when his contract expires, because you've already got him there and you've got Aslani there as well. So you've got a very, they've rejuvenated the midfield by a lot. I think everyone should go and check out our interview with him. He's got a fantastic left foot. He's very mature. He's a very, down to earth guy. But he's only 21 years old. He had 5 goals and 4 assists and 37 appearances last season, which is very good.
No, he is. He's kind of an artist. He's a fantasy player. He's got magic. There's magic when he gets the ball. He's a real I don't want to call him a throwback, but players that you used to see more in the 80s and 90s that when they got the ball, you kind of expect things to happen. But there's a beauty in him. He's just got such a beautiful left foot. He's magnificent at free kicks. Brilliant with free kicks. Great long shot. He's got big potential. Samardzic. I love watching him play. The question, I guess, is kind of what exactly is his best role? Not necessarily his best position, but how exactly you utilize him.
I think he's going to be played as a left mezzala in Inzaghi's 3-5-2.
Yeah,
I think that's the position they're going to go for. Unless Inzaghi decides to do what I've wanted him to do for many years, and that is play with a 3-5-1-1, and have play Samardzic as a number 10, or Sensi or someone else as a number 10, and then because Inzaghi's midfields are very fluid in positionally, I should say, in terms of where the players play. They change positions a lot in central midfield, but I don't think he's going to do that. So so I think in the 3-5-2 he's going to play as a left mezzala, alternating with Mkhitaryan. And to be honest, there are worse players in the world to study from than Henrik Mkhitaryan.
Inter's roster now, their midfield roster is magnificent. It's the best in the Serie A. It's definitely the best in the Serie A in terms of depth and everything. Yeah. I mean, I still think in terms of first choice centre midfield, it's out of Napoli and Inter. I might just go with Napoli still. Seeing as Brozovic has left, but it's close. But in terms of over the course of a season, you need more than 3 players. You need backups. You need depth. You need different types of players, and Inter definitely come out on top there for sure. The only question I would have though is, as much as we both love Samardzic and we believe in his potential, he's not nowhere near the finished player yet. He's got a big ceiling. But did Inter need another central midfielder? Should that have been a priority for Inter? Another central midfielder when they need a striker, they need a goalkeeper, they need a centre back.
Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, Thuram and Lautaro are the starters. Correa's a backup, and they're trying to get rid of him. And we're going to get into striker situation as well soon. But, you could say that they didn't. But it's quite clear that they want to they feel that with Thuram, with Fratesi and Samardzic, that's the midfield and attack sorted in terms of starters. They've created that. Then they look to the right and Cuadrado for just 1 year, stopgap. But next summer, the defense, I mean, it's clear they're going with Bastoni, Acerbi, Darmian, and Bisek to kind of, they've begun the rejuvenation there as well. So they feel that this back three can work for another year. And of course, if Sommer comes in, he'll be there for a year and then maybe another year as a backup if they decide to go after Trubin or on a free transfer, which seems to be the case, as Trubin seems to be very, very keen on joining Inter. If Shakhtar don't sell him this summer, then there's a few reports suggesting that he'll join Inter on a free transfer next summer. So we'll see. But look, I understand the question. Personally, I would have liked them to splash cash on the right centre-back position, because next summer is then they have to do it next summer, because that defence needs a makeover.
They potentially need 2 centre-backs next summer, do you know what I mean?
Well, they will need 2 centre-backs next summer, because they can't continue doing this, because Darmian and Acerbi, God bless, they ain't getting any younger. And so that's that. But I mean, look, it's clear that they're starting the rejuvenation. They're what we said all Italian clubs are doing, including Milan and Juve. Young players, talented players, not too expensive wages. That's what they've started. I mean, if you look at it, Aslani, Fratesi, Samardzic, none of them's older than 24. So
and losing Fabbian, is that something you would have preferred to avoid, to lose Fabbian? Is he somebody that you believe?
Well, I don't think they are. That's the thing, though. They have a buyback clause. I mean, they seem very adamant on having a buyback clause on him. So because they really believe in him, and the player really wants that. I think that's one of the terms for him to accept the move away when he signed that contract extension until June 2028 was that I want to be part of the Inter.
Just totally unrelated to Inter. Buyback clauses are something I think should be banned from football. They should be taken out. I don't think it's fair. There's too many big clubs, and I'm not looking at Inter. This is just brought it up to me now. But I see a lot of Premier League clubs, Manchester City, Chelsea, putting these buyback clauses, and we're talking about trying to prevent teams from hoarding players. It goes on too much.
Agreed.
I think it should be. I think it should be outlawed. By
I agreed. I don't like it either. And it's essentially like a loan, but with interest. And I'm not particularly. I don't like it either. I think it limits also the small clubs.
Yes.
In their chance of making.
And you do the work building up the player
profit.
And everything, and then
exactly.
and then you can't plan for the future because you're going to lose them.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I don't like it at all. But I mean, there was an attempt to try to stop it a few years ago, but that failed spectacularly.
Yeah.
But broadly speaking, look, Inter was almost without a single player from the Balkans for the first time in many, many years, with Dzeko and Brozovic leaving, and we can't have that. No. So we need to have one itch at Inter at all times. Yes. And it's I'm glad that it looks like it's Lazar Samardzic, who we had on the pod a few weeks ago, and I think is a very talented player, and also is someone who, as a character, I think will suit perfectly into this.
Yeah, do listen. Yeah, if you can, go onto our YouTube page, and we do have the full interview,
the video
that we did. Yeah, on video actually. Yeah, with Samardzic, and it's a very, very interesting interview. Also about where he come from. He was born in Germany, but his his parents are from the Balkans, from Serbia, and he having played for the youth teams of Germany. Then earlier this year declared and started playing for the Serbia national team, and his under Dragan Stojkovic, who was one of my favourite players as a kid.
My player's genius, an absolute.
He's
genius.
The coach, and he was his dad's hero as a kid as well. Yeah, so quite some interesting stories. He was a Barcelona fan growing up.
Messi, of course,
and so there's a few interesting stories there. Staying on Inter, so. It's Roma versus Inter for Scamacca. A few days ago, these things are changing all the time. A few days ago, it seemed as if Roma were close to agreeing a deal with West Ham to bring Scamacca. Scamacca clearly has decided he's leaving West Ham because he's removed West Ham from his bio on his social media account. But it seemed
so moody.
Yeah, it seemed like he was going to Roma. It was going to be a loan with a buy option, which would become mandatory if certain objectives and conditions are met. And then Inter kind of started to come in really strongly at the weekend with a a potential deal that would be probably more beneficial or more preferable to West Ham, because West Ham want to sell Scamacca. They want guarantees. They don't want an option, a loan with an option. So how do you see it, Nima, at the moment, this race for Scamacca?
I just want to, first of all, to everyone who listens, his name is Scamacca.
Yeah.
You're not, Carlo's just using his Neapolitan dialect to pronounce his name in the most Napoli way ever, which I absolutely love. Listen, I think I look at this from two perspectives. If you look at it from a football romantic point of view, if you look at it from the point of view of what Roma is and how they are in terms of the romantic side of it, and there should always be a couple of Romans in Rome or at Roma, then Scamacca really has to go there, because he would be a cult hero. He grew up in the city. Yes, him and Fratesi, they both played for the Lazio youth teams, but he is a Romanista. Everybody knows this. And he's a Roma fan. Pellegrini's there. He's the captain. I mean, it would be very, very interesting from that perspective. But from a strictly tactical point of view, and with Jose Mourinho there, I know Jose Mourinho doesn't mind Scamacca, but I think Morata would suit this Roma and his Roma much better. But then again, you have Mourinho's contract expiring in June 2024. Who knows if he'll stay? Many doubt that he will. Thiago Pinto, does he stay? Does he want to leave? There's reports today from an Italian outlet, Cronache di Spogliatoio, that says that Thiago Pinto and Mourinho hate each other, that they've fallen out, and they, one of them has to leave, and so on. That's not been confirmed or denied yet, at least not when we're recording this. So, but I'm starting to think that, for me anyway, I'm thinking that I think Scamacca, given that Fratesi is at Inter, given that Inter are going after the young homegrown thing, and I think also with Scamacca's background and, coming from very difficult background, he himself just a week or two ago said, I grew up on the street. I think for him to go back to Rome, I think maybe that would be a little bit too overwhelming for a kid who is obviously a very sensitive person. I think it would be better for him to go to another city other than Rome at this point in his career, where he needs to find some consistency after a meniscus injury and a meniscus operation and a failed tenure in the Premier League under who you call the Scottish Allegri, which I think is so unfair. David Moyes and Allegri should never be mentioned in the same sentence, because Allegri is a fantastic coach and David Moyes is not so much. But I think the best thing for him would be to go to Inter. Obviously, Fratesi, who he's played with since they were like children, there are photos of them since they were 7-8 years old in the same youth team, and they've grown up together through every step of the way. And I also think in a Simone Inzaghi system at Inter, with this new Inter of homegrown young, and he'd get more chances, and I think it's a better environment for him to grow in. But it depends on how you look at it. I mean, I understand that Roma fans would absolutely love it. I mean, he's a son of the city. He's a son of Roma. It would be very beautiful. But I wonder also financially if Roma can pull it off, because they don't have any money to spend. They need to sell Roger Ibanez. See, I knew Roger Ibanez was going to screw Roma even more than he does on the pitch. So they need to sell him first, and they've not been able to do that yet. And now there's talk of West Ham being open to letting Scamacca leave on a loan with an option to buy, or it becomes an obligation, and so on and so forth, on certain conditions. So I think that's something that I think that's why Roma are even in the conversation, is the players' will and West Ham's opening up to this. But Inter can definitely get involved as well, because they do have money to spend and they need another striker. There's also talk of, if Inter manage to offload Correa, which seems more and more like a possibility now as well. Saudi Arabic clubs are interested. So, I
think a lot will depend on Scamacca's will as well. I think probably deep down he would love to go back to Roma.
Of course, there's no doubt about that. He said it.
Yeah, he's even said it publicly. Yeah. So I think, I'm saying now, even with the offer, potential offer in front of him from a club as big as Inter, I still think he would prefer to join Roma. It's whether or not he's prepared to play it, to wait it out, and if it takes to the last week of the window, then West Ham would have to make a decision, or if the Inter offer is ready before Roma's offer is ready, then he's got a decision to make. I think it's going to come down to Scamacca at the end. I think both, as we discussed last week, there's positives and negatives for joining either team, just as there is for the other teams that have been linked with him, like Milan and Juventus and is he needs to move though. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. And Italy, I think Italy need him to move. The Italy national team
need him to start playing regularly. I said it a few years ago that I think that the future of Azzurri number 9 is Gianluca Scamacca, and I firmly believe that. I think he's a tank, but he's got these beautiful ballerina feet as well. The technique. And I think he's just an unpolished diamond. And I think in the right environment, he could really, really turn to one of the best in the world quite easily. Because I think the talent is there. I really, really think so. In terms of a number 9, he's a classic number 9, like prima punta. He's really does have everything, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay.
In terms of talent, that is.
Yeah, in terms of talent. Also, staying on Roma though, Renato Sanchez's move to Roma is looking like it's closer than Scamacca. Again, initial loan deal, and then the option to make the move permanent. Sanchez's salary will be is quite big. Was too big for Roma, so PSG would pay a bit of that. I mean, this would be certainly a potentially great deal for Roma. We know what talent and potential Renato Sanches has. Unfortunately, in his career, he hasn't quite managed to show it at the very biggest clubs, let's say, like at Bayern Munich, in the Premier League. When it's been at the very, very top level, he hasn't quite done it. So we see, can he do it at Roma? Portuguese coach with Portuguese players in the squad as well. Potentially that's a good deal for Roma, isn't it?
It's a fantastic deal. I think he would be perfect. This is again why I keep saying that I think Morata would be so good. I mean that midfield and Pellegrini, Dybala, Morata would suit this Roma side under Mourinho so well. I think I really rate Renato Sanches, and I think he regrets going to PSG, where it was a complete wasted spell so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Also, another central midfielder. This time, Milan are about to sign Yunus Musah from Valencia. Transfer fee of around 20 million euros. And Milan and Serie A continue the American revolution. And we've spoken a little bit about Musah already on a previous show. So what I want to do is, out of all the Americans that have come to Serie A this summer, so we've got Christian Pulisic to Milan, we've got Musah, who's about to join Milan, we've got Timothy Weah, who's joined Juventus, and we've got Folarin Balogun, who could be moving to Serie A as well, potentially Inter, maybe. We'll see. So out of those that have come so far, who do you think is going to do the best, and who do you think is order them from 1 to 3 in terms of best to worst? Putting you on the spot here.
Musah, Pulisic, Weah, Balogun.
We can leave Balogun out of it because he hasn't joined. So
but I'd go Musah, Pulisic. I think are clear, and then Weah. I think.
So you think Musah will be the biggest success, and
I think no. Who I think will be the biggest success? I actually think Pulisic will be the first American player to have huge success at a traditionally big European club. I think Christian Pulisic will do really well at Milan. I really think so. I think he's at the right time, the right age, the right time, right place, right moment for him to show after, a bit disappointing spell at Chelsea, even though he did win important trophies there. I think he's I think Pulisic will become, in terms of star quality, I think he will become the first US men's national team star to succeed at a big, traditionally historic big European club. That I do think. But if we're talking today, who I rate in terms of talent, I think Musah and Pulisic, I think they're both of them ahead of everyone else, but I hold Musah a little bit higher.
Yeah, I like Musah. What I've seen of him, I haven't watched him week in, week out for Valencia, but I was very impressed with him at the World Cup. In fact, I liked him and Tyler Adams. I like both of them too at the World Cup.
Yeah,
obviously,
same.
Tyler Adams went to Leeds.
Same.
Leeds were a total basket case last season. He got injured as well. I liked him. I quite liked him. Don't like the other American that was at the World Cup in centre midfield so much. But those two.
Don't even mention his name. Weston McKennie doesn't even get a mention. But what happens if Weston McKennie stays at Juve and he doesn't go anywhere?
I don't know if I can say that on the show, to be honest with you. All I know is that Juventus have about 40 players in their squad, and they have to sell about 15. They've got about 15 players they need to get rid of because they're not in Europe. We'll come to that in a bit. But yeah, I mean, I almost feel like Musah might have the most guarantees out of these. The issue that I have with the Musah signing is that I feel like Milan need a deep lying central midfielder, and unless they're planning to play Benacer there. But, Benacer is out until the new year probably, and he's not going to get back to his best till when? With such a serious injury. I feel like, are Milan going to buy a deep line midfielder? Because Musah's not, for me, he's not a 6. He didn't play there for Valencia as a 6. He played as a kind of more of a mezzala, didn't he? So, I mean, I'm not saying he can't play there, but, for me, it's like, who's going to play there? For Milan. So I'm not, again, same kind of thing, same kind of talking point as we discussed with Samardzic. Like, was he a priority for Milan? Who's going to play in central midfield out of Milan? So those are the question marks. I mean, I do like him. What I've seen of him, I really liked him at the World Cup. And Pulisic, we know there's a player there. Weah, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of him as an attacker, but we'll see if he can adapt into this new role as a wing back. So based on that, I think I'm probably going to go Pulisic, Musah, Weah as well.
Yeah, I'm the same. And we're not even mentioning Weston McKennie either.
No. No, we're not. We're going to assume that he's leaving Serie A.
We're assuming to keep the family peace, meaning in order for Carlo not to have a meltdown.
Well, having said that, he did start for Juventus in their friendly against Milan the other day. Fantastic.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Okay, right. Just staying on Milan. So this has become a bit of a talking point following the news that Musah is joining, and that is the lack of Italians in the Milan squad. So in their 30-man squad at the moment, there's only 6 Italians. They're Calabria, Florenzi, Pobega, Colombo, Sportiello, and Mirante. Now, out of those 6, 2 of those are reserve goalkeepers, so they're never going to play. Then you've got Pobega, who could leave still, backup central midfielder, and you've got Colombo, who is the third choice striker and also could leave on loan.
Well, he has to be loaned out, shouldn't he? I mean, they can't.
There has been talk that he's impressed Pioli in pre-season.
Well, of course he's impressed Pioli because he's a fantastic talent.
Yeah.
I mean, this is. I mean,
but the point is this: that there's only 6 Italians. That could become 3 or 4 by the end of the window. I mean, is this
how the tables have turned?
Well, is this a problem? Is this something that, as thinking through the prism of the Italy national team, is this something that we should be concerned about? That a team like Milan have such few Italian players and not even trying to sign Italians?
I don't think so, because I'm old enough to remember when everyone was saying, "Oh, look at Juve and Milan, all they've got is Italian players, and you silly Inter, you don't have a single Italian player," and everyone's trying to pontificate on that and say that, oh, how bad that was for Italian football. And I'm going to say now what I said then, that's nonsense, got nothing to do with that. Because if you look at all the other teams, you see that the top teams in Italy, you see that there's quite a bit of Italian talent. And then you look at the youth teams and you see that they're actually doing really well, and that you look at the quality of the players. I don't think there's a problem at all here. I think
But don't you think that is the problem? The fact that we had this debate when Italy won the under-19 Euros just a fortnight or so ago, and we said, look, we've had a great summer. The youth teams, the under-19s, the under-20s got to the World Cup. Now these guys need to start getting a chance and they need to start playing. Well, if teams like Milan have just decided to sign foreigners and they're not given, there's less and less space and the number of Italians are going down. And it's not just Milan. I mean, Napoli only have 7. I went through and I had a look. Napoli only have 7 Italians in their squad. Have a look at the starting 11. 1 or 2 starters in the outfield players. Napoli. Only Di Lorenzo is the only first choice guaranteed starter. You could maybe include Politano possibly on the right wing. Yeah, but he's not a starter. We're talking about first team. Then you've got, Atalanta, who we just talked about. They've only got 7 in their squad as well. Two of them are goalkeepers, and one of their other Italians is actually Brazilian, Toloi. Juventus, 11 in the squad. Only 3 of the starters for Juventus are Italian. Roma, 4 starters, 7 in their squad. In fact, it's only really Inter that have got good numbers. Talking about turning the tables. Well,
that's what I mean.
It's only Inter that have got good numbers. I mean, is this an issue? Or are we not giving Italians enough a chance, especially when we're talking about with regards to the young players?
No, I'm not worried because again, I look at the Italian players.
But the percentages are tiny, though. I mean, we're looking at record low numbers of Italians playing in Italian league, and that's a problem. Surely, Nima, that is a problem. That's got to be a problem. If we're at a record low.
I'm saying wait. Let's wait. I think we should wait to see how this plays out and how it looks on the pitch as well. Because remember, the Inter with 13, Fratesi or Scamacca if he joins, Bastoni, Barella. The reason why Inter got them is because they were good enough. They were deemed to be good enough. And some of them demonstrably are good enough. And of course, all Italian teams would prefer to buy a player who's from Italy because they know the culture, they know the football, they know everything. They don't have any adaptation problems. But I think it's too easy.
I think it's too easy to go out and buy. We're talking about Serie A being in a situation now where they haven't got the money to go out and buy established players. They're having to base virtually all scout for the same kind of players now. The kind of players that, like we said, the Atalantas, Udineses would scout for and sign. And now all the bigger clubs are kind of having to go and scout those kind of second level, third level, or even lower, in terms of younger players from abroad nowadays, which is fine. That's just how things are. But this also gives us an opportunity to actually, give chances to our own Italian players. And when they're doing so well in the under-19s and under-20s, we should be giving these guys a chance. And I just feel like it's too easy to just go out and sign players from abroad because those players abroad are actually playing in their league, so they're getting the opportunities and the experience to develop. And I just, like you said, let's see how it plays out over the next year, 2 years. But I am concerned, and I think Milan is a perfect example of that, of the concern about the lack of Italians that are playing. But we're still in the end of July, so let's hope that that improves. And I'm looking at one player in particular, Wilfried Gnonto, who's available for just 20 million this summer, which I think is a bargain. And I'm not seeing any Italian teams come in for him at the moment. So that's another example of that. I want to see a team go for him. There's teams looking for outside attackers, Napoli, Fiorentina. Why aren't they going for him? They should be going for him. Talking of youngsters and the Under-20 World Cup, Juventus have signed a youngster, and that is Facundo. Well, they haven't signed him yet, but they're going to sign him very soon. And that is Facundo Gonzalez, Valencia B centre-back, who has agreed a 5-year contract. He's 20 years old. It looks like it's going to be a very low fee, maybe even a free transfer with add-ons to make it kind of 3 to 4 million, a sell-on fee as well. Now, this guy, I only saw him in the Under-20 World Cup. He was brilliant in the 20 World Cup for Uruguay. He was maybe the standout player at the tournament. He was definitely the standout defender of the tournament. Really tall, big, very, very tall guy, but he was very, very good on the ball. I remember left-footed player, used it very well with kind of long, kind of Bastoni kind of passes up the field, very progressive, kind of breaking the line passes, switching it. And he plays as a left centre back. He played as a left centre back for Uruguay in that under 20s, and he's been called up to the senior national Uruguay squad. He hasn't played for them. I think he hasn't really barely played at all for Valencia's senior team, but he's been a regular for their B team. Looks like he's going to Juventus. They're going to loan him out straight away to. I think he's been linked to Genoa and Sampdoria and another team as well. I think Cagliari as well. So.
Yeah, I think it's good that they're doing this. They need to look at the future and they need to start rejuvenating. And I think it's I'm happy that Juve are adapted. This is a new Juve. We'll see what happens and how it lands. But I think it's a smart signing. I mean, he was really good in the under-20s. But as we've said many times, the step between senior and junior football or youth football is huge. It's absolutely massive.
Yeah, it certainly is. Staying with Juventus, they have now been banned officially from Europe. We all knew it was happening. I called it about 3 months ago. I knew about 3 months ago it was happening. So they've been excluded from the 2023-24 edition of the Conference League, and they've been they've been ordered to pay a 10 million.
How the horror, the penalty.
The penalty is the total penalty.
Oh. Allegri's going to shithouse his way to a Scudetto playing one game a week.
Well, I'll say this from Allegri is I don't want to hear any excuse. Again, like I said last year, I don't want to hear any excuses about Allegri. It's been tough for Allegri. He's had this, he's had that to work it.
Well, I don't know what nonsense Juventus...
Right, while everyone else is
excuse me, I don't know what nonsense Juventus are going to come with this year. I mean,
I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for the Allegri faces, as I'm going to call them, to make excuses for Allegri this season when they're playing once a week. All I'll say now is at least he's got a whole week to train them and create those patterns of play now, isn't he? Like on the training ground.
Oh my days! No,
but yeah, look, I don't want to go over stuff that we've spent a whole half a season going over. I'm just gonna say two things. One, I tweeted Juventus again weak in my opinion. I tweeted that they're like a cuckolded husband who then gives his wife's lover the keys to his house because Juve pull out of the Super League knowing that UEFA are going to ban them from Europe anyway. I mean, it's just like on your hands and knees to your oppressor, isn't it? Like, basically.
Oppressor?
Yeah, that's the way it is. That's the way it is, basically.
Oppressor.
Number two, again, UEFA punishing, I'm not making this about Juventus, UEFA punishing Italian teams and no one else. I look forward to UEFA punishing Manchester City, punishing PSG, punishing Barcelona.
Don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath.
I look forward to that. And this is clearly not a political punishment, not at all. Of course not. So that's all I want to say. I mean, if you want to add anything to that, you can. We've been over this 1,000 times, so I don't want to dwell on it. But in terms of positives,
I think
is that Juventus are out of Europe, so they should be much better in Serie A. Playing once in Europe, playing once a week is huge. It's massive. It's absolutely massive to have that rest, to have that time on the training ground. We've seen what Antonio Conte's done with it. So let's see what Allegri can do with it.
This is what the Serie A basically. They basically, when they did what they did, handed this over to UEFA and said, well, you have fun with it then. We're basically our top 4 teams in the Champions League. We don't want to mess with that. The Europa League spots, we don't want to mess with that either. Enjoy. Here's Juve, the biggest team ever to go into the tournament of your newly established European Cup, UEFA. You want to throw them out? Be my guest. You're just going to be cutting off, cut your nose to spite your face. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, this is not a punishment for you. The punishment for them was to not be playing in the Champions League. Anything else other than that is just
One thing that I am disappointed about not being in Europe. I mean, as a competition, I'm not bothered at all because it's the Conference League. It's not a prestigious competition. What I'm disappointed is, as I said just before, Juventus have a 40-man squad. Now, regardless of how many competitions they have, that's too many. That's way too many, obviously. But Juventus have got a lot of really talented young players. Now, being in the Conference League would have been a great opportunity to play some of these players and give them the opportunities which they're not going to get in Serie A. and that would have been great for them to develop. I'm even thinking of like youth team players like Dean Huijsen, for example, who I think is a really big talent, but also players coming back from loan like Rovella, who else have they got? Miretti, Fagioli, Illing Jr., Cambiasso. These kind of players. It would have been a great opportunity. Now, it's Juventus not being in Europe. Well, as what would happen with Atalanta not being in Europe last season, they're going to have to cut their squad massively, and they're going to have to end up loaning or even selling players that, ideally, I think a lot of Juventus fans wouldn't want to happen, and that's a shame. That's unfortunate, I think it will be a big shame if they get rid of some of those younger players I've just mentioned, even sell them because they weren't in Europe. So that's what disappoints me about them not being in the Conference League. Nothing else disappoints me about not being in it.
No. I mean, look, missing out the Conference League when you're Juve is about as punishment. There's no punishment at all. It's they did them a favour, but it's in one sense it's good for Fiorentina, because from what I understand, Fiorentina are back in the competition, and this time I really think they should try to go for it and win it, because I think it was annoying to see them not win it last season. But other than that, this is fantastic for Juve. I mean, once a week they have a full year where they can rebuild and focus entirely on finishing in the top four, which I think is a given now. Who knows how good it could go if Allegri has the time to micromanage 38 games and treat them like 38 finals. They could even end up winning it, even though they don't have the squad to and shouldn't do. It could absolutely happen.
There we go. There's the first Allegri excuse coming in.
There's no excuse.
Don't have the squad. Of course they have the squad.
They do not have the squad to win the squad. No, they do not. They do not. You look at that squad and you tell me that it's in any way, shape or size or form, in any way close to where Inter, Napoli, or even Milan are with what they've done on paper. Come on, of course, football isn't played on paper, but you can't tell me that Juve have a squad to win the Serie A.
They absolutely have the squad that they should be challenging to win the Serie A. Absolutely, they should. Absolutely, doesn't mean I think it's a great squad, but we're talking about Serie A here. We're talking about this is Serie A.
We'll see who's left at the end of August, because Vlahovic is probably going to.
If you have Vlahovic and Chiesa in your attack, you absolutely should be challenging to.
If you don't have them, that's exactly.
We've had it revised that suddenly Chiesa and Vlahovic are not top players when they absolutely are.
No, I didn't. No. I'm saying if one of them leaves, it depends on who replaces them. I mean, is it going to be Romelu Lukaku? I think Romelu Lukaku is the kind of guy who wins you the Serie A. Yes, he's the kind of, even in this form, he's the kind of guy who scores 15 goals, 20 goals without even being as good as he was under Conte. He does the ugly stuff, which Allegri likes. He beats your Empolis and your Lecces away with ugly goals, which matter in winning the leagues. But we'll have to wait and see. It's still too early to say. But look, there's no doubt they're going to finish in the top four. This was the best. This was the best possible outcome out of a really, really horrible situation that they created themselves entirely.
Okay, right. Verratti, right. We'll talk about Marco Verratti next week. His negotiations to move to Saudi Arabia. Let's move on to Baggio and Prem-Face of the week, because I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this this week. This is hilarious. So let's go to Baggio and Prem-Face of the week. Okay, starting off with Baggio. Who you got, Nima? Are we going with Atalanta for their sale of...
Absolutely. If you sell Rasmus Hojlund for that kind of money, I can't pick anyone else but them. I mean, Jesus, what a fantastic deal that is.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it? It's amazing.
It's truly, truly amazing.
Yeah.
And a shout out to the Moroccan women's team as well, who won their game in the World Cup. I think it's the first time ever.
I'm sorry.
What?
I shouldn't be laughing. I'm just thinking of that ridiculous question from that BBC journalist. Just absolutely
so
just
rude.
Insane.
So rude. Absolutely.
Oh gosh. Right. Okay. Talking of Prem faces, let's do Prem face of the week. I've got two absolute corkers this week. Just Hall of Famers, both of them. Have you got anything?
No, I'm. Well, one of them is what we're going to have. So,
okay.
Or that is what I was going to choose, because I think that's so.
Okay, so we've got our good old friend Rory the Tory, who on Talk Sport said that Last week he said, who did he say was unproven because they hadn't played in the Premier League last week?
Well, it wasn't Mbappe who was unproven.
No, it was Onana. He said was it Onana?
Oh, yeah.
Onana was it Onana that was unproven last week? Well, anyway, this week Kylian Mbappe is unproven as he's not played in the Premier League. And I'll quote him. He says, "The problem I have with calling Kylian Mbappe the best in the world is he's never played in the top league and he hasn't done it in the Champions League." So that's Rory the Tory's latest gem. It's just unproven because they haven't played in the Premier League. I don't know. If I had £1 for every single time I heard that, I'd be a billionaire.
Is he Premier League proven? As if it's like, especially in today's era when football is so globalized and the top leagues are so similar. Of course, there's difference in quality, but it's not the 1990s where the Serie A was such a huge difference in terms of how they played.
Kylian Mbappe scored a hat trick in a World Cup final. He scored. He was probably maybe the best player in the tournament as a teenager 4 years before in France, winning the World Cup.
Winning the World Cup.
I mean, it's just like.
What are you talking about?
I don't know what to say.
Yeah,
I don't know what to say.
It's unbelievable.
Because I think that sometimes there must be a limit for prem faces, but then you hear something like this and you think there is actually no limit. You can just go. If you're going to say it with Mbappe, then you can say it with Maradona. Actually, someone did say it about Maradona, didn't they? Recently, they said that he wouldn't get into Sheffield United.
He was unproven in the Premier League. Oh my God. Oh dear. Yeah, it's just they are. I mean, they can't be serious. No one takes them seriously, and everyone laughs at them. And it's like it literally is like a case of the Village Idiot Weekly or Daily in his case. It's just. It is what it is. What can you say? Right.
The second one is totally unrelated to football. It's got nothing to do with football at all. But I just saw it just before we were about to start recording, and I put it down because it is the best. It's the best example of prem facie outside of football I've ever seen in my life. It's just absolute gold. So it was in the Mail on Sunday this past weekend, and they were doing a story talking about who the next James Bond is going to be, and they reported that the famous actor Idris Elba's brother Damson was set to be the next James Bond. The problem is that the Mail on Sunday mistakenly believed that Damson Idris is his name. Idris is his surname. Now, Damson Idris is a British Nigerian actor who was in Snowfall, I remember, a very good series. So his surname is Idris. Idris Elba. Idris is the first name of Idris Elba. Damson Idris. Idris is the surname. Right. His surname is Idris. He was born in Peckham. His parents are from Nigeria. So the Mail on Sunday mistakenly believed that Damson Idris must be the brother of Idris Elba, who was born in Hackney. Parents from Sierra Leone and Ghana. So,
I mean, don't they? Do they not have Google? Like, do they? Like, I don't even know what to say to that.
I don't know.
It's so lazy.
I don't know. I don't know whether you'd call it partially racist or casually racist, or if it's just they've seen the name Idris, or it's just. I'm just trying to work out how this happens. like I know like prem facie is just something that there's just a gene missing or something that I don't know. I'm just trying to work out how this. I don't know who the guy that wrote the story is. How he possibly believes that this Damson Idris is the brother of Idris Elba. Like how does it get to it? It's just.
But this is what I mean. Like, do they not have Google? Do they not have the internet? I mean, it's like I don't understand. You before you write everything, you this is what part of your job is. You got to double check so you don't say stuff like that. I mean, that takes you 5 minutes to understand who he is.
Yeah. But I could understand making that like. I mean, I still couldn't understand it, but like if they had the same surname, like if this guy's name was Damson Elba or something, you might just, you might be a little bit tired, and you just might think, oh, it's his brother, or he's related to him or something. But it's his first name against the surname.
I'm reading it now, and it's not just Mail. The Daily Mail, yeah.
The Daily Fail.
Yeah, Mail Online.
The Daily Fail.
Yeah.
Who's the writer?
Yeah.
Who's the writer? Let's shame him. Come on, name and shame him. What's his name?
Let me find it for you. Yeah. Let me see. Could Idris Elba's older brother? Jesus Christ! I can't believe I'm actually reading this. Could Idris Elba's? No, they've deleted it now.
Oh.
You can't. Yeah, when you click on it, you can't find it.
Oh.
Yeah, they've deleted the article now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll find out his name.
Yeah,
I'll find out his name.
It's just
Yeah. So that was I don't know. It's a close one. The Prem Face of the week between Rory the Tory and this Mail on Daily Fail writer. It's a photo finish. It's a photo finish, I think.
it really is, and there's quite a bit of and also one is the first name, one is the surname. It's just it's just all of it is just so it's so cringy and painful. And it's like, well, it's like, do you think everyone called Johnson or Svensson or like everyone's not related just because they have it's just, oh my god, yeah, it's so cringy. It really, really is.
Okay. On that note, let's call it a day. Thanks for everyone for listening. We will be back on Tuesday for the Q&A episode. Then on Wednesday or Thursday, we're going to have our Lazio deep dive, talking about the Lazio Mercato, what they're planning, players they're planning to bring in, the players they're planning to sell, and Sergio Milinkovic-Savic's move to Saudi Arabia, how that all came about. Lots to talk about there. Who is that with, Nima, this week?
I'm waiting on confirmation because the person I wanted to do with cancelled because he's it's Italy and everything is a little bit like it is, but I'm waiting on final confirmation, so I don't want to give quite a name just yet because I'm talking to a couple of people.
Okay, great.
But yeah, I'm really working on trying to bring someone who covers Lazio, who can do a proper Lazio deep dive. But yeah, I'm speaking to a couple of people.
Okay, fantastic. Right. Okay, let's leave it at that. We'll see you on Tuesday, everyone. Thanks for listening again. All the best. Ciao, ciao.